When Peter Sam had his accident with the slate trucks, the owner bought a new engine. They called him Duncan, and soon he was put to work with the others. Whilst Rusty would take workmen to repair the line, Duncan and Sir Handel managed the passenger trains. They took them up to the lake in the morning and brought them back home in the evenings. The trains were heavy and would often run late. Sir Handel wasn't bothered. Duncan was cross and took it out on poor Rusty. "All day we're doing real work, and he trundles about with his tiny train of trucks getting in the way." Peter Sam was shocked. "Rusty is doing an important job, and don't you forget it." "Important? Pah! You treat that diesel like a hero," Duncan scoffed. "Engines should be engines, not flying around saving cats." "You'd find yourself in a field instead of the station without Rusty," Sir Handel said knowingly. "What would you do then?" "Take a well-earned rest," Duncan snapped, and he went to sleep. But the next day there was trouble. Sir Handel felt an awful pain. His driver inspected him, searching top to bottom and all over. "Your valve gear's broken," they said finally. Sir Handel frowned. They soon explained the situation to Duncan. "I'm taking both our trains?" he spluttered. "Don't be ridiculous." "It can't be helped. We have to keep the trains running." Rusty tried to calm him. "Don't worry, Duncan. We've been working very hard to get the rails as smooth as satin." Duncan rolled his eyes. "Like that'll make a difference," he said under his breath. Unfortunately, it didn't. Duncan's trains got longer and heavier. He would run late, and the passengers would blame him for it. He would grumble, "This train is heavy, I get no rest. This train is heavy, I get no rest." He would always try to make up the time, but would bucket and bounce along the track. It seemed to him that Rusty hadn't fixed any of it. One evening, Duncan stood at the top station, waiting with a full train. The rails were wet and had made the up journey difficult. He couldn't wait to get back to the shed. "Rusty was supposed to be helping," Duncan scoffed, "but I've been hitting bump after bump." His driver scolded him. "Rusty is trying to fix the bumps you're making. If you didn't do your rock and roll, we wouldn't have a problem." "Pah! He's not focusing on the right bumps." The guard's whistle blew, and Duncan, pushing steam, stormed away. Duncan made heavy work of the return journey. "I want to get home! I want to get home!" They steamed into the tunnel, and when Duncan got out, the rain started pouring. "Easy journey from here," he thought to himself. They stopped at the middle station, but when he tried to leave, his wheels slipped ferociously on the rails. "Come on, come on, come on! I want to go, I want to go!" Duncan was determined to get home, and soon got the coaches moving. As they rolled down the line, Duncan could see where Rusty and the men had been working. Duncan whistled to no one in particular. "Typical lazy diesels, nowhere to be seen." He steamed gamely on. However, Rusty hadn't been lazy. With all of Duncan's bucks and bounces, there was one section the men had never been able to get right. Rusty would always warn the engines about it. "I can handle myself, I know my way," Duncan said. His crew held on for dear life as Duncan rocked and rolled around a corner. The driver clutched at his regulator, and the fireman lunged for the brake. But to his horror, the brake handle came clean off in his hand, leaving Duncan helpless to stop. Quickly, Duncan picked up speed. He didn't realize what had happened until he tried to slow down. He tried to whistle for the guard to put his brakes on, but the wind blew his whistles up and around, only leaving the guard confused. Without help from the brakeman, Duncan slid helplessly towards the big station. But for all his rough riding, Duncan could, in fact, handle himself. There was only one thing he could think to do, and without hesitation, he shot steam from his funnel, and his wheels spun forward. "I've got to slow down! I need to slow down!" he cried as he pushed against the coaches. He made such a noise that the guard finally took notice. "I have to stop! I need to stop!" His driver consoled him. "It's all right, boy. You've stopped." No one was hurt, and all the passengers got out of the coaches, bemused at the sudden stop. Duncan, however, was badly shaken, and soon started to feel harassed by the passengers crowding around. "Make your way to the platform, please," the guard insisted, before shepherding them away. None of them minded the crash. Duncan had arrived early for once. It was only after the last passenger had gone that the thin controller came to survey the damage. He looked Duncan up and down, shook his head, and silently walked back. "It's all right, boy," his driver soothed. "You did your best." He was soon back on the rails and shunting his coaches back to the yard. His crew spent the afternoon mending his handbrake before heading home. It was quiet that night in the shed. None of the engines said a word to Duncan. He's a hard worker, they thought, but they weren't sure what to make of him. None of the engines learned of Duncan's heroism. He thought it best kept quiet. "I'm not a hero," he would insist to his crew. "I'm only an engine. An engine should be kept as engines." Even the passengers on board never realized what their engine did for them. But then, passengers almost never do. But from that day to this, his driver and fireman will never miss the chance to tell the story of their engine that saved the trains, the passengers, and himself. The railway's unsung hero.